like to think of myself as a normal guy with a normal life. I like doing normal things like hiking, camping, fishing, with hiking being my favorite. Unfortunately, all three of these things might be off my list of pastimes after an incident a few summers ago on the Appalachian Trail. Living in the upper East Tennessee region, I've hiked the mountains all of my life. The Appalachians are different from other mountain ranges I've been on. They're full of mystery and wonder. Their beauty is unmatched, and, well, so is their terror. You see, a few summers ago, I decided I want to hike the whole Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine. None of my friends would accompany me. We had always kind of laughed at the people who did hike the trail. After all, to us, it was just a long range of mountains. And after all, we'd all grown up in the mountains picking wild blackberries, blueberries, elderberries, hunting ginseng, moss, and honeycombs. It was business as usual, just everyday life for us since childhood. But something about the idea of hiking the whole trail really got a hold of me, though, and I wouldn't be put off by their jeers and taunts. I prepared and left out by myself. Of course, I had all the modern equipment to help me guide along the way, too. I knew how dangerous it could be in the mountains, so I prepared accordingly. I was determined that social media, via my cell phone, would keep me connected to friends and family so I could still share the experience. It was early May and many people had already begun the over 2,000-mile hike as early as March so that they could make the main termination point before the park closed in October. Taking my time and visiting the small towns along the way to resupply my food and other materials, I arrived in the first week of July, on a part of the trail that I was familiar with. I was in Tennessee, my old stomping grounds, just comfortable. I was at ease and, well, completely relaxed. And that wasn't to last very long, though. In Tennessee, there are many, many dead zones for cell phones, especially in the mountains. I knew this, and it didn't worry me. I even posted a video letting my fans know that I would be back online as soon as I was out of the dead zones. I had a compass. I didn't need anything else. This was my own backyard, so to speak. No way I could get lost here. Well, there was a way I could get lost, and I'm still not sure how it happened, but it did. The compass stopped working properly. It would spin and point in one direction for a few seconds, and then spin and point in another direction only to repeat the spinning. And my grandma had told me since childhood that compasses wouldn't work in parts of the mountains because of the iron ore. I'd never had a reason to use one until this trip, so I never thought much of it. In a wide, flat area on top of one of the ridges, I stopped to get my bearings. And that's when I think I lost the trail. The AT, anyway. The trail ended on one end of the clearing and then picked up on the other side, in the tree line. It was closing in on dusk, so I wanted to pitch my tent a ways off the trail and rest. And I still wasn't worried about being lost. I woke the next morning and packed up to move on. The compass was still not working and there was no cell service. Using the phone for video and still shots, I continued along the path. The small trail seemed to dwindle to something akin to a deer trail. Finally, I ran smack into a wall of laurels. It was impassable, and I would have to try to backtrack and find the right path. Trail maintenance workers regularly reroute the trail as necessary, and that's why the trail's total mileage fluctuates from year to year. This only agitated me, but it didn't worry me. There was always another way back to the main AT. Except this time there wasn't. This time there seemed to be no trail anywhere in sight. I walked on, struggling uphill and over craggy spots to find another trail, just any trail at this point. By the time the sun began westering and the shadows in the woods grew longer and sinister, I was exhausted, both physically and mentally. I happened upon another opening, a natural clearing in the middle of a dense forest area, and stepped into it, thankfully, for a flat spot to rest. Though my instincts told me that there should be a small town nearby, I could see no lights or hear no cars that justified this feeling. Setting aside the cumbersome backpack, I built a small fire and sat to eat a can of peaches before pitching my tent. Halfway through the can of fruit, I heard the awkward, drunken, staggering approach of feet. Human feet. I put down the food and took out my hunting knife. The heft of it in my hand brought a measure of comfort and security. Though I watched intently in the direction of the approaching footsteps, I could see nothing past the edge of the small clearing. My heart hammering and my senses all revved up a notch. Adrenaline is a funny thing. And I backed up to the edge of the clearing on my side so that I was out of the dancing light from my fire, and I stood at the ready, wound up tight as an 8-day clock ready to defend myself and my supplies. And after what seemed like eons, a haggard man, dressed in torn, dirty, and ragged clothes, appeared on the other side of the clearing. His eyes rolled in their sockets, never looking on anything for more than a second. His hands seemed to be caked with filth, and the ragged stained clothes swam around him. He'd lost a massive amount of weight recently, or so it seemed. Maybe another hiker who'd gotten lost on the Appalachian Trail. The man mumbled,
"Food, shelter, please help me. I'm lost, I'm starving."
He staggered towards the fire, stepping next to my backpack, knife still in hand. I said to him, "Whoa there, buddy. Looks like you've had a hell of a run on bad luck. You want something to eat?" And I stepped around the fire and held out a hand to assist him, to let him know that I meant no harm.
"Food, water, shelter, please."
His eyes still rolled around in that terrifying fashion. I led him to a spot by the fire where he could sit comfortably and gave him a can of beans. "Here you go, buddy." And then I gave him one of my canteens of water. And after some coaxing, I finally got him to eat the beans and drink some of the water. I had put the knife back into my backpack by then, and I asked him, "So, my name's Mark. What's your name? What's your story?" And he made these noises for a long time. Long enough that I started to get annoyed hearing them. He seemed to become more agitated the longer he made the sound. He was moving his hands erratically and yelling louder, and I stood and backed away a few steps. He was creeping me the fuck out. Suddenly, the man stopped and fell over. He'd passed out, and quite honestly, I was glad, relieved even. And I didn't want to leave him there unconscious, but I also didn't want to stay. It was awfully dark at this time, and I had no tent set up either. As I sat there and debated on what to do, the man woke up and sneaked up behind me. And I startled when he screamed and lunged toward me. He knocked me sideways and we scrapped through the dirt and grass. The man weighed much less than I did, but was terrifyingly strong. As we wrestled, the man grunted and kept making that odd noise as he pummeled at my face and head. Then, he began screaming.
It's all her fault. It's all her fault.
And that's when I saw the filth on his hands and clothes. It was not dirt or grime. It was dried blood. I saw it up close and personal. I threw him aside and he slammed into a tree. I gained my feet and ran into the darkness. And I won't lie, I was in full-blown panic mode at this point. The mountains are very hard to navigate at night as the interior of the dense forest lets in only the minimal amount of moonlight, even when the moon is full, as it was that particular night. And not only was I floundering in the darkness, bumping into rocks that jutted from the ground and hitting trees hard enough to knock me down, I was running away from all of my supplies. The night fell deathly silent around me, and I leaned against the large tree, peering into the dark in his direction. I couldn't see anything, but I soon heard the determined and heavy footsteps of the madman, and then his maniacal laughter rang out, echoing along the mountain. The footsteps sounded too sure and too heavy to be the gait of the lunatic I just ran from. The wind kicked up and a steady strong breeze blew into my face. It carried the stink and the voice of the man to me. I covered my mouth to keep from gagging. Had he really smelled that bad while sitting at the fire eating?
Boy, I need directions and I'm cold. Please help me. It's all her fault, I swear it.
The voice had a haunting, hollow sound to it.
Boy.
And the plea came again, this time from above me, possibly near the ridge of the mountain. Then sobs, heart-wrenching sobs, echoed to my ears. Who was she that he kept talking about? Why was any of this her fault? Had he been with someone hiking and became lost due to an error on her part, whoever her was? And as I was mulling this over, the voice came again, this time only about 5 feet from me. Yelping in surprise, I leaped backwards and fell on my ass, scuttling back farther as heavy footsteps rushed me. Flipping over to get my feet underneath me, I was shoved violently back to the ground, and the man, snarling and growling like a rabid animal, thrashed at my back. Kicking hard, I managed to get out from under him only to feel a burning pressure in my lower leg as he bit down on it. Screaming as much in pain as in fear, I kicked at his face with my other foot. But he wouldn't back away, even after I dislodged his teeth from my leg. He came back every time I kicked him away, and I barely got to my feet and positioned myself toward the darkness again when he began repeating his plea. When I'd finally put some distance between us, I just yelled, "Just go away and leave me alone. I can't help you. Go back to the fire and leave me alone." My leg wasn't bleeding, but it throbbed in time with my pulse. Thankfully, the madman hadn't been able to bite through my jeans. When no answer came after about 5 minutes, I decided to move farther into the darkness. A particularly large outcropping of rocks that towered about 20 feet into the air seemed like a good place to hide and wait for sunrise. I crawled into the bottom, where there was a small indentation just large enough for me to sit up in and huddle there, forcing my breathing back to normal. When the wind blew, I imagined I could hear that man walking through the forest floor, as if he were circling my position. Then, the wind would die down, and I could hear no such thing. And soon, I convinced myself that it was just my imagination running wild. That, after all, I was probably safe. And there was no way he could have tracked me to this little shelter. A long time later, I fished my cell phone from my pocket and turned to face the rock, curving my body into a fetal position to hopefully hide the light from the phone. I turned it on, and my hand shook so badly that I nearly dropped it. The light was blinding in the pitch black of the forest, and I dimmed it as much as I could. Of course, there was still no signal. I held the phone in front of my face, willing it to pick up just enough signal so that I could shoot a quick text for help to my older brother. But it was no use. There was simply no signal to be had out there. I was completely alone, with this thing in the forest hunting me. Turning my head toward the forest, I pushed the button to darken the screen. As the light went out, I saw the most horrifying thing of my life. The madman had somehow crept up on me as I was messing with the phone, and he was leering into the shelter at me, his wide eyes blazing with lunacy, his wide grin full of chipped and dirty teeth, fresh drivels of blood streaking his face where I'd kicked him. Then we were in total darkness. My lungs refused to pull in air, and my heart exploded into thunderous hammering in my chest. My body tingled with pins and needles. The man's hand raked down the side of my face. His ragged nails flayed the skin from my temple to my jawline.
It's all her fault.
His voice started soft and low, and became louder with each word until it broke, sounding as if a churning gravel pit was talking instead of a man. And I wasted no time twisting my body fluidly to make another escape. His scream followed me up the mountainside to the ridge and dogged me until I fell into a large ravine. I didn't try to climb up the other side. I just turned downhill and ran as fast as I could. Now, I don't know how far I ran before I stopped hearing his grating cries and pleas, but eventually I heard nothing behind me, and I continued to run, panicked and blindly, bouncing off trees and hitting rocks until I came into an old logging road. The peachy pink glow in the east let me know that dawn was close, and I slowed my pace to a jog. I heard a group of men talking loudly around a steep curve in the road, and I ran towards them. And it turned out to be a group of forest rangers. And they were gathered over a large map spread on the hood of one of the trucks, and they all looked up as I ran toward them. And while I spilled the story about the madman, the tale was interrupted by a long, grating scream up the mountain. "That's him! He's followed me here somehow!" And I ran behind one of the trucks and watched for him to appear. One of the rangers ordered the others to set out for him, and then the ranger came over to me. "Son, I want you to just calm down now." He motioned for me to get into the truck. "Come on, let's get you checked out at the hospital." Without argument, I climbed in, anxious to be away from the mountain. As soon as we were on a paved road, I asked him, "Why were you all gathered there anyway?" "We were forming a group to search for a man who ran from a mental institution over a week ago. He's been hiding up there, terrorizing some of you hikers. One man wasn't as lucky as you. He died from his injuries and his wife is still in the ICU." My blood ran cold. "That man killed a guy?" And the ranger nodded, looking grim. "He was put in the institution because he hears voices that tells him to do things. One of the voices is that of his mother, who is rumored to be a mountain witch, and apparently she refuses to let him rest until he's brought back a person for her to possess. You know, so that she could come back to life or some sort of hokey like that. He says she torments him, won't let him eat, and causes him injury every time he fails. The ranger paused and glanced my way. He believes he must consume the victim for her to be able to possess their body because she's in spirit form inside of him. And my body went numb and my mind reeled. That explained why he kept yelling that it was all her fault. You mean he was going to eat me to try to bring back his dead grandmother in my body? Nodding, the ranger kept driving in silence until we reached the hospital.